Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Monday Rules. Now, actually, it's kind of like Tuesday Rules because I'm recording this at like 1:30 in the morning. Pretty much have spent the entire day running around trying to get things ready for TwitchCon, so my apologies, but at least there is still a Monday Rules challenge for this week. Of course, before I actually get to the challenge, let's first announce the winner for last week's Tier 6 Cruiser AP Only Challenge. And the winner from the NA server is Crokodone. Hope I'm actually Crokodone. Okay, I hope I pronounced that name correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. Now, Croco here is in a Cleveland in what I think can possibly consider the ideal kind of battle for an AP challenge in a Cleveland. The enemy team is comprised of mostly lower tier ships with the occasional tier 6 I think thrown in there, but most of them are like tier 5 ships, which for the Cleveland is awesome because your AP is actually going to be able to penetrate them. Now, one interesting thing I noticed when I was watching the replay is that Croco doesn't actually sail very far. In fact, Croco sailed from the spawn area to this one particular point that he's coming up to, and then he just stays there. And he kind of stays there for pretty much the entire battle. So, there's not much to describe in terms of armor angling or anything. Yeah. That's one of the things I kind of noticed. I was like, okay, cool. It just kind of stays there and he fires. But it actually works. And it works, I think, primarily because, well, you know, it works when you're playing lower tier enemies, I guess, who aren't combining all their forces and trying to rush you and take you down. So, yeah, I mean, it's just firing AP away, and there he goes. There's the island. He's starting to look for beach babes. Anyhow, one cool thing I kind of noticed about the way that Crokodone has played this particular challenge was the fact that he's actually not zoomed his camera in all the way. And this actually kind of got me to think about this particular use of the camera. For those of you who've played the Cleveland, especially after you've gotten the advanced firing training skill, and you realize that the Cleveland has this massively high arc, I'm actually starting to wonder if it's actually better to zoom out, and so you can actually see when your shell's better and see, you know, where your indicator should be put and where you can lead, and so on and so forth. And that actually has gotten me to think that maybe it's better with higher arcing shells, you know, the ships with the higher arcing shells, to use a slightly more zoomed out camera view, and that allows you to adjust your aim a little bit easier. There is one thing in this entire battle when I was watching that I would like to point out to Crokodone in the future, is that I watched you aim at targets that were coming towards you, and I think you're aiming a little bit high. So what I think you're actually doing with your reticule, assuming that there is a reticule that you're seeing and not this little thing that the replay system gives me, but when you look at your reticule, I think you're putting the line right at sort of where the hull of the enemy ship is, and it's causing actually quite a few of your shells initially to miss. So what I would recommend in the future to help you improve that aim a little bit is to take a look quickly at your mini-map and see when a ship is coming towards you, and then aim the cursor, the little reticule area, lower. So aim it sort of into the water and then have the enemy ship essentially sail into it. I think that might help, help you hit targets that are coming towards you more. And the big reason why you have to look at the minimap is because the enemy model, the model of the actual ship, is very, very deceptive. Even if it comes in just a little bit, it looks like it's still parallel to you, but the ship is actually closing. And if you just use the model to shoot, you will have a tendency of either overshooting or undershooting the ship just because you can't really tell. It's almost like that the model presents in itself a bit of a visual illusion sometimes. So that is something I think that you might want to look into a little bit more detail, and hopefully it'll improve your long range shooting. And did I mention that he hasn't really moved anywhere? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Crokodone really is on that island over there searching up those really hot beach babes, and he doesn't want anybody to know, and he's just left his gunners to just fire away from this one spot at anything that moves. Because I think if it was me, I'd just go crazy. My ship just never moved anywhere in the battle. But hey, I mean, it seemed to have worked this battle for him, so much the better, I guess. Anyways, the Furtaka is pretty much going to die here. The major mistake made by this Furtaka and the Aoba earlier was just to show a Cleveland a broadside and inviting shots into the Citadel areas. As a Furtaka, you've got to stay angled. See, right there. That Furtaka became angled at the very end and took minimal damage because you watched the shells actually bounce. That's something that a lot of the sort of the mid-tier Japanese cruiser captains and even the mid-tier USN cruiser captains really have to understand. Don't show that broadside. Because if you show that broadside, you're just inviting a quick death. Now what I really want to talk about in this battle, and of course, you know, Crokodone here is going to really beat up on a St. Louis, because St. Louis really has no business being in a shooting match with a Cleveland. Just none whatsoever. However, what I do really want to talk about is actually the next engagement that's going to happen, and Crokodone is going to engage Congo, and I believe that's the battleship that he's going to be shooting at. Now, a lot of people default to HE the minute they see a battleship, and they default to the HE because the HE I think is more consistent. You don't have a chance of getting your shells bounced, you have the ability to set those devastating fires, so why not shoot HE? However, AP isn't exactly a useless ammo type. There are ways to actually get reasonably good damage shooting AP only. So I guess first of all, you have to know a little bit about AP ammunition. There are 4 kinds of damage that AP can essentially do. AP can do 0 damage if it bounces off your armor. AP can do 10% of its max shell damage in terms of overpen damage. AP can also do penetration damage, and I believe penetration damage is set at 33% of what your Citadel damage would be. So if you can actually land a good salvo that penetrates and it doesn't overpen, you can actually score some remarkably good damage with a cruiser firing AP only. And finally, of course, there is the actual Citadel damage, which is the full damage that the AP shells are capable of. Typically, AP shells at long range is not going to penetrate a battleship. However, around medium range, you can start to get those penetrating hits. So this Congo, which is approximately 8 some odd kilometers away from Crokodone's Cleveland, can actually take penetration damage. Although, where you aim those shells is vitally important if you intend to actually get penetration damage. If you get even closer, however, then you can actually think about going for the Citadels. The Cleveland, when it gets to within 2 to 3 kilometers, is actually capable of penetrating battleship belt armor and actually getting those Citadel hits. However, in this battle, Crokodone never really gets that close to that Congo. Always kind of stays around the 7-ish kilometer range, which means that at this range, the best that Crokodone can hope for is just try to get as consistent amounts of penetration damage as possible. Mind you, Crokodone doesn't exactly have a lot of health to go outright brawling with a Congo, so in this particular sense, it might actually be better for Crokodone to actually hide behind this island and kind of have this Congo focus on something else. So take a look, and what I really want you to pay attention to is actually the damage that comes up. So there was 1,600 damage on only 3 hits, so if you think about getting maybe 10 hits, that's quite a bit of damage that you can put out onto a battleship. And the damage is reasonably consistent. If you keep watching all the salvos that Crokodone fires, the damage is reasonably good, except for that one which he fired at the more heavily armored belt, and most of the shells bounced. However, once the battleship returned to giving a nice flat broadside for him to shoot at, the damage kind of becomes consistent again. There is one thing I would like to point out, is that Crokodone at this particular point in time, I think if you raised up a little bit more and fired at the less well-armored superstructure area, I think your damage could have been a little bit better. Remember, what you really want to be going for is just get as many penetration hits as possible. So let's watch this particular damage roll. There's one. I think it was like right there. There we go. 4 or 5 penetrating hits and 4,550 something damage. with a few more shells coming in, almost 5,000 damage in an AP salvo against the battleship, which is quite phenomenal. So let's take a look at Crokodone's results screen at the end. 165,000 credits earned, 1,621 experience, 215 target hits, 4 citadel hits, managed to defend the base a whole bunch of times, and doing a total of over 100,000 damage. So congratulations, Crokodone, and keep an eye open on your email box as I'll be sending you some doubloons. And moving on to this week's challenge. This week's challenge is a bit of a lower tier challenge because I want to get as many people involved as possible. Since World of Warships has launched recently, there's going to be a lot of new players. So here's the challenge that I want to throw towards all of you. Play a tier 3 USN cruiser, the St. Louis. Fire AP only, so that means no HE allowed. I'm only going to be calculating AP damage. No other restrictions apply, and your job is to do as much damage as possible. And that's it. Good luck with the challenge, have tons of fun, have a great week, and always remember, Monday rules.